What is up, everybody? Welcome to episode number 77 of the RDO podcast with the VK bros, Jason and Alex Von Cannell. How are you this morning, bro?
I'm good.
You're good?
I've had a very busy week.
Mm-hmm.
Had a lot going on.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of big plans, a lot of little things.
Yeah.
Pretty low on the lead front, but I bought a lot of cars this week, which is good.
Mm-hmm.
But I first want to start off by having a chip at Google.
Mm-hmm.
So Google, I got the Google Pixel 6 Pro,
Mm-hmm.
which is the latest new top of the range. I'm a phone nerd, right?
Yeah.
Every year I buy whatever's the best one. And I thought that I've had a Google Pixel in the past,
Mm-hmm.
and it was great. And this one was like a proper premium version, like flagship, true flagship.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, yep, I'll buy that. And there's some stuff that it does, which is amazing, right? Like it's got on-device dictation. So instead of, like when you use your voice control with Siri, for example,
Mm-hmm.
it actually sends that to the cloud first and processes it in the cloud and then sends it back to your phone, whereas this does it on device.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very fast, it's very good. And a lot of it means you can just talk to it and you don't even have to push the send button, just say send on a text and it'll send it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's pretty cool, and I use that feature a lot. But something it does really badly is phone calls. Now, reception dropouts, I can't stand in my doorway there and get reception.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas my Samsung, no problems. The touch sensitivity of the screen, it for some reason automatically mutes it when I hit a certain thing. Like if I try to, it like mutes it when I go to a different screen whilst I'm on the phone call.
As in it mutes the phone call?
It mutes me.
Right.
It mutes me, so no one can hear me, and I don't know I'm muted because the screen's blank.
Right.
And then you try and look at the phone, and then you want to swipe from the top to because you're now off on a different screen. You need to swipe from the top to go back to the call thing. Well, that's where the ear sensor is.
Mm.
So once you put your finger on the top, the screen turns off, and it's muted. Now, so all that aside, I've complained to Google. There's quite a lot of criticism they're receiving over some of the bugs.
Is this like... I'm trying to think of who this would benefit. The only person that these sorts of technology quirks would benefit are people who like jack off while they're on work phone calls when they're not supposed to.
Oh, do you mean why do they? I just think, I genuinely think no one cares about phone calls. Yeah. Therefore, they put no effort into it.
Yeah,
so
okay.
Someone probably just copied and pasted from just use the same framework we had last time, and then it doesn't mesh with one of the other systems. That's what I think it is.
So it's not to protect that's who want to jerk it.
No. Then, even worse than that, my earbuds, and you could probably tell me this, the quality of the earbud, like the phone conversations that I had with you when I've got my earbuds in, is no good.
No.
Okay? So last night, I went on to a deep dive into what is the best earbuds for phone calls.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know who makes earbuds for phone calls?
No one?
No one.
Yeah.
No one. It's all about noise cancellation. It's all about how much bass they've got. It's all for listening, nothing for speaking. But I did find a company. The company's called Edifier. Because when I go into a deep dive, I go deep. So I looked at all the mainstream stuff, the stuff that's available here, no good. The Apple Earbuds Pro are the best. That's the benchmark in from what the West has access to.
Yeah.
Okay? But horrifically expensive. I think they're $600 or something, right?
Yeah, right.
Now, there's Bose Quiet Comforts. They're like $550. There's Sennheiser. They're like $500. And so I watched a stack of reviews. And then I'm like, okay, what's the Ali's alternative, right? Went to Ali's. There's a company called Soundpeats.
This is Alibaba's for any new...
It's AliExpress.
Oh, AliExpress. Yeah,
AliExpress.
For any new listeners. It's
which is
Alex's
great.
go-to.
If you're not shopping on AliExpress, you're paying too much. And before everyone says, oh, I don't just want Chinese shit, have a look at every tag that you've got of everything that you own.
Everything's Chinese
It's all Chinese shit.
Yeah.
So I watched all these reviews of Soundpeats, and I'm like, yeah, actually, some of this stuff is really, really good. And we talk the difference. You could get like something that does everything that Apple AirPods Pro do, like including noise cancellation, for like $70.
Right.
So that's the difference. But anyway, kept searching because I wasn't just happy with that, because there was like, I watched reviews of people, because there's only like 3 reviewers that actually review voice calls. Everyone else rates everything like the music, listening to music. And there was a company called Edifier, and a year ago, it's now discontinued. Edifier make a earbud called the TWS 600 that is, it looks like the earbud itself looks like the old AirPod Pro, like the elongated tube, you know, the electric toothbrush head.
Yep. Yeah.
And I think that obviously helps the mic, gets the mic closer to you.
Yeah, yeah.
So they had one of those, and it's amazing. Now, they use a piece of technology which I would never have thought of, but is, like, I can't believe more people don't have it. It uses bone conductivity to identify what is speech and what is background noise. So it uses the vibrations of your jaw.
Wow.
And then it has an AI that runs through it to say, okay, he's talking.
Yep.
Let's pick that up. Those sounds. Not all the other sounds. And on this review video, I'm like, dude, this is wild. Like, this is like, they do a simulation where he does like a test speak in a quiet room, and then he turns on simulated music, or like background noise, and talks in. You can't hear anything.
Yeah.
Like, it's great, right? So I jumped straight onto Ali's to try and find them. I went to the Edifier store, and I didn't realise it discontinued. This video was a year old.
Right.
And then I find on Ali's someone's got old stock, 2 units left. 2 left. And they're $150, so they're expensive for...
$150 each or $150 for the pair?
$150 for the pair. When I say there was 2 units left,
yeah,
I bought the second last unit available in China, right, to get these things. And I really wanted they had gloss black, which would have been sweet, but they only had white ones left, so I got white, which will mean that I look like an iPhone user, which I don't like the idea of. So when they come in, I might do like a review of them.
Yeah, you should.
Because, like, if that's compared to even the best of the best of the best of what you can get here in the West, this shat on them. So hopefully...
Well, let's reserve your judgment until you actually get them.
Yeah.
And secondly, how good is it going to be when you do a full product review of a product that is no longer available?
But then hopefully someone goes, hey, maybe we can do something with that technology. So, because some other people, there's a lot of different solutions to the problems. And it just seems that this one, for me, works perfect. Because I want one. I spend a lot of time talking on my earphones.
Yeah.
And when I jump into a car that doesn't have Bluetooth, I want to be able to, like...
For sure.
Like, whack them in and goes. So, yeah, phone companies, until you are calling them app devices, can you please get good at making phone calls?
A lot of them are referring to them as devices, though.
That's true.
I think it might even be people in our generation are the last ones who still call them phones.
Yeah.
Because a lot of kids, it's all devices. Device.
And further to that technology point, did I send you the article this morning from Bloomberg? The guy that made the PlayStation said the metaverse is dumb. He's like, why would anyone want to put goggles on and live in a different world? He said the real world is important. Your own self-development is important. Yeah. The metaverse is dumb. And I totally agree with him.
Yeah, for sure.
And he's investing heavily into, so he's now no longer with, well, he's a part of the Sony arm that's doing this augmented reality stuff. So he's still in that world, but he's like, I don't want you to put goggles on. That's stupid. You know? And if you want to, he said, you don't want to create a shiny version of yourself.
No.
And not work on yourself.
That's right. Yeah.
So yeah, I agree with him.
Because there are certain things in the real world that you can only really experience in the real world that you can't really experience in the metaverse.
Yeah.
And if you have the greatest, let's say, level 99 character in the metaverse, or whatever it's going to end up being, and you're a level 1 character in the real world, well, yeah, you're in big trouble. It's going to be the new age equivalent of playing video games in your mum's basement for your whole life.
Well, no, I feel like from a technological standpoint, I feel like because a lot of investment's going to go into it. We're talking billions and billions and billions of dollars are going to go into creating this metaverse, and it won't just be Meta that's doing it. It'll be a bunch of people setting up their own little sandbox. The incentive to try and get users across is, and we've received this too, is getting emails from Meta saying, "Hey, if you come over, we'll pay you." And they're going to, just like when YouTube first started, they paid people a packet of money to move their content over. I just think it's like the Betamax, it's the HD player, it's the mini disc, it's the advanced technology that no one's going to care about, like that will fail. That's how I see it.
Yeah, look, maybe. Or is this not a step towards waking up in a pot of goo as a battery?
Yeah, and that's why I think it won't work.
Well, no, it might work. So the next step is metaverse, where it's just goggles, and you get to sit in this online world. And the problem is, this online world's going to be so fantastic for so many people that they're going to want to stay in it for as long as they possibly can. But then you've got the dramas about, well, look, how are you going to earn money? You know, you need to have a job so you can still sustain yourself outside the metaverse, but you want to be able to spend as much time there as you possibly can. So then the next thing's going to be, look, well, what if we paid you just to stay in the metaverse permanently?
That's the initial goal. There will be businesses built inside the metaverse.
Yeah, and then in the meantime, the run-of-the-mill job that person would have normally held, which might have been checkout chick, it might have been labourer, might have been whatever, they'll be replaced with a machine that will need battery power. So then the next step will be, well, look, to sustain yourself, we'll pay you to be in the metaverse. All you got to do is just jump into this little red pod. We're going to fill it up with goo, and you're going to stay in the metaverse, and the battery power generated from your body heat will run the machines which take your job.
The reason why I think...
A la the Matrix.
The reason why... Well, see, the Matrix fixed a problem that Zuckerberg hasn't thought of yet. Because he kept the face... the Matrix keeps the face free and just plugs into the back of your neck.
Yeah.
So that's easy, so you can still be mobile. Whereas, like, you're blocking your eyes... And that's not like, you watch videos on YouTube of just people getting fucked up, jumping off cliffs into walls, like physical walls. Yeah. It's dumb, bruh. And that's why it won't work like that. So I always thought, like, I was a big believer in AR, and I remember that, what was that game that we had as kids? Sega, it was a Sega product, physical guns, with a headset, it looked like Dragon Ball Z. And that would have your score on it, remember?
Laser tag thing. Yeah. It was like a laser tag type.
Yeah, but it was a Sega product. I can't remember what it was called.
Yeah, I can't remember what it was called either.
But I remember...
That was cool.
I remember thinking back then, the future is, which then got called augmented reality, where you see the physical world that's here, augmented by digital assets.
Yeah.
So, for example, you could have a pair of glasses that you see the world.
Yeah.
But then the processor inside digitally puts something on the screen that you can then interact with. Now, phones are doing it with, like, Samsung's got like a AR tool thing, so you can take a photo and you can add little bots that will walk around the world. So I think AR is more will get more attention than VR.
I agree. And there are human biological processes which are in place, which they just will have to be the death knell for VR because of the goggles thing. Because, to give you an example, obviously we've got baby number 2 on the way, due in March, and it's our second little boy. And so we're going to have a house of 3 boys in it. And if anyone who has grown up in a house with 3 boys knows that they have a tendency to punch each other in the dick and balls whenever they get the opportunity. So in a household full of 3 guys, I don't think anyone's going to feel safe to be lying on the couch wearing a VR headset over their eyes because you just open being dick punched.
But even just take a step out.
The world will be saved by the dick punch.
Take a step out of this whole thing and just look at it. If you're an alien and you came to the planet and you saw some of those big ass goggles going, and you'd be like, that's mental.
Yeah.
Right,
we're leaving.
Whereas, if you saw me with glasses, and could have a conversation, because I can see you. Oh, hello, Jason. Hey, there is a monster over there. Pew, 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 pew. Like, so we can have the game. Or, can I want to check stocks, and I could do it through the augmented reality?
Yeah.
That, to me, makes way more sense.
Yeah.
Way more sense than putting a box on your face.
Now, let's move on. There's a whole range of subjects I want to speak about today, because I sort of woke up on the wrong side of bed this morning, and I got many things that have just been irking me that I want to bitch about. But first thing I want to say is so this will drop on Monday. On Wednesday is my son's second birthday. So all of you watching on YouTube, please put Happy Birthday Nate in the comments so I can show him how popular he is online. So that's number one. The second thing I want to talk about is, I think it's so relevant to the conversations we've been having for the last 18 months in regards to COVID and the social conditioning and the power of the people, which was the ban on IVF in Victoria story that happened this week.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, most of you probably would have heard about it, but if you hadn't, there's a really funny element to this for me. But essentially, the Victorian government held a press conference where they declared a code brown.
Yeah, why?
Change the name, guys.
Change the name.
Red's bad, right?
Yeah.
If you said code red, everyone would go, that's a bad thing. But when you say code brown, it literally sounds like you shit your pants.
Yeah,
which is exactly what's happened.
Yeah, so it is accurate. Keep the name.
Yeah. So they declared a code brown because of the medical system being overwhelmed and pushing all the stuff to the side about the fact that you got a whole unvaccinated workforce that you could bring back to work. Let's just park that. We've spoken about that enough. But one of the things that got a lot of press was that they put a 3-month hold on IVF services. Now, this created a huge backlash, and rightfully so, because anyone who has been through IVF knows IVF is not a choice. No one who has the ability to have children without IVF goes, you know what, I'm just going to do the IVF thing anyway.
Yeah.
It's not a choice. And for a lot of people, having children is all they want to do in life.
Yeah.
It's a big fucking deal. And generally, most people that turn to IVF, and this is a generalization, but most people that turn to IVF do turn to it as a bit of a last resort. So there might be, say, women of advanced age, where you're starting, like, obviously the older women get when you're in your mid-30s and then late 30s, the older you get, the chances of having a successful conception lower year after year. And the Victorian government, just because of sheer lack of planning, which is all it looks like, just decided to rob these women of a 3-month window.
Well, and it was, from my understanding of how IVF works too, it's very time sensitive.
Yeah, it is.
So if you've got, like, you've got appointments or whatever, if you miss that opportunity, like some people could be on their last opportunity ever, and that could be gone.
So we've got a friend who had a successful IVF experience, but was told even going into it that she had like a 5% chance of conception. So her baby's just like miracle baby, an amazing story. So happy for her. And the Victorian government literally was looking at robbing women of having that opportunity.
Yeah.
And not just women, obviously, there's partners involved who want to have the children too. So completely fucked up. But in the positive side of things, the amount of sheer public backlash that they received because of that decision meant that the Victorian government actually backflipped on that decision within, I think it was 48 hours. It was done and they've moved on. Now that's awesome. However, this pisses me off because can you imagine if we had a coordinated public backlash to the COVID restrictions that we've had imposed on us for the last 2 years in the same vein and what people power could have done?
Yeah.
Because I don't know about you, but I kind of put banning IVF for 3 months probably on the same level as riot police shooting rubber bullets at peaceful protesters. And we should have had a public backlash to, for example, that happening, because that should have been a big no-no. we should have been having public backlash to a whole host of the restrictions that we've had for the last 2 years.
I don't think so. Yes, we should have had a bigger backlash far earlier, like earlier in the piece, because the reason why it hit now is because they know they are losing grip.
Yeah.
Because their policies aren't working.
Yeah.
So when there was backlash, there were riots and there were protests in the street about those protests of the protests, and at that time the government was in such a position of power because everyone thought that the majority of people thought they were doing the right thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Whereas now it's like, well, hold on, your policies have led us to being in the worst case than we were before. Therefore, we don't trust you as much as what we did 12 months ago.
See, I don't necessarily think that's the reason for the backlash. I think that there's been people dropping off believing the narrative every day.
Yeah.
And especially in the last 2 to 3 months. And I think Omicron has exposed it for a lot of people. But I think...
You mean that the virus has done more to help us than what any policy has?
Yeah. We were having this conversation yesterday. Literally the only step forward that we've taken as far as the COVID response goes is the virus mutated itself to be less deadly.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's that people have gone, okay, we've already lost trust in the public structures and therefore this decision makes no sense, so now we're going to have a backlash. I think that you need to fight irrationality with, and this is not a dig, but like they've used irrational but emotional selling tools on us for the last 2 years, and we've tried to fight that with logic the whole way through, and it doesn't work. So you kind of need to fight fire with fire, and you need to pull the rationality out of it and use an emotional tactic to sell your point. And for many, many women, but also many, many people in general, the ability to have the opportunity to have children is a very highly emotionally charged subject. And I feel like that's why you got the emotionally charged backlash, which then got a result.
Yeah, it might play a part of it, but I genuinely think people are starting to think about getting voted back in. You know, that elections are getting closer. And the wheels have fallen off the policy. So I've noticed, like, look at Queensland's policy. They change every 2 days.
Yeah.
And I reckon all they do is make a policy, see what it does on Twitter, and then change it to suit.
Yeah, I agree with you. And it's like...
Which they didn't do before. They didn't care.
No, you're right. And so I'm just checking the numbers now. So we've clocked over 2 million COVID cases total for the pandemic so far. 2,069,000. And... This will sort of segue me into the next thing that I want to talk about, which was one of the reasons why I think the wheels are starting to fall off is that at the beginning and even for the majority of the pandemic, the power structures that were controlling the narrative were all in line. They were all uniform. So you had the Australian government, you had the World Health Organization, you had our major partners in America and the UK, and everyone was singing in unison, singing off the same hymn sheet.
Yeah.
Now everyone's starting to diverge. And this is where I think a lot of the narrative is starting to break down because, for example, there are that many things that have happened in the last 2 weeks which has caused divergence. Number one, the World Health Organization says on their website there is no safety or efficacy data to justify vaccinating children, and that children generally have a mild illness anyway. So the World Health Organization says on their own website that they advise against vaccinating children under 12. The Australian government, in the meantime, is like, no, vaccinate everyone. Vaccinate. So there's a divergence there.
There was a divergence prior to that, though, from the WHO, which is about lockdowns. They said don't lockdown.
Yep, that's another good point. Yep. So another divergence. And then there was a divergence as well where all the rich countries started talking booster shots, and the World Health Organization was like, you don't need booster shots, there's no justification because there's no data they do anything. We need to focus on getting these vaccinations out to the poorer nations, like was originally agreed upon. So there's all these divergence. When 12 months ago, the Australian government side to the World Health Organization.
It's lockstep, yeah.
Yeah, at every step of the way to give their plans legitimacy.
Yeah.
And now we've just ignored everything that they've said. Meanwhile, you've had a massive development in the UK this week, which is its own story in itself, which is that Boris Johnson announced that the UK is removing all COVID restrictions. No vaccine passports, no mask mandates, like none of it. No lockdowns, everything done, dusted, gone, finito. Now, there's a political reason why Bojo's doing this, because Bojo just got caught out for the second time having a party during lockdowns.
Yeah,
so
loves to party.
Yeah, loves to party. Loves a drink, does Bojo. So he obviously, this would appear to be a last-ditch attempt to save his own skin. But for whatever reason, it's been announced. It's been announced. So you've now got the UK diverging away from the Australian plan again.
Yeah, because 2 days after, ScoMo gets on and basically is doubling down on vaccines.
That's right.
We will see the third dose mandated in, I reckon, a week or two.
Yeah, well, everyone's already making noises about it. So again, this week, what's Australia done? We have had New South Wales and Victorian state premiers now starting to... I've seen a lot of press conferences where they both talk about being in lockstep with each other, which should concern people, because that's a Labor and a Liberal state government who've literally been at odds the entire pandemic, and now all of a sudden they're starting to speak in unison. Why is that? Okay, maybe it's because they realise that after spending the last 18 months trying to tear each other down, when they're all really trying to accomplish the same goal, well, the message was starting to get a bit murky.
Yeah.
So now you've got Dom Perrottet and Dan Andrews going, okay, they made announcements this week. They're both going to end up mandating the third dose.
Yeah.
And they've already done it in certain sectors, and just like every other time, they've done the certain sectors first, and then they roll it out to everyone else.
It's funny because I had that conversation with someone when we first heard about the booster shots, and I said, they're going to mandate the booster shot, right? And he's like, no, it's only for the elderly and immunocompromised.
Yeah.
And I said, remember when you've heard that before? And he goes, oh yeah, good point.
Mm-hmm. So, not only are they talking about those mandates, but they've also reduced the wait time to have your booster shot from 4 months down to 3 months, as was predicted on the RDO podcast about a month ago.
Yeah.
So, while the UK is moving away from any restrictions at all, and you got to remember too, the UK is in the middle of winter.
Yeah.
Right? So they're in flu season, the time when respiratory viruses spread the most. They're right in the middle of it, and they're like, no, we're going to move away. We're going to go back to plan A and get off all the plan B.
So our government's trying to stretch this across to the winter to then be able to justify it even more.
Well,
because I still think that the number is 6. I think it's 6 shots. Once they sell 6 shots each per person, then they'll back off.
Well, it's clearly 6, because if the majority of people in the country have already had 2, we're now trying to push everyone to get their booster, which is their 3rd, and we've reduced the wait time to 3 months, which means you can fit in the next 3 this year before the trial ends in 2023.
Yeah.
So it's, as was predicted on the RDO podcast.
Yeah.
But I feel like a lot of this also comes down to the fact that ScoMo, they call him Scotty from marketing for a reason, he's licked his finger, put in the sky, and he's trying to see which way the wind's blowing. And I think that he still believes that there is a majority of Australians which support vaccination and the mandates, which I tend to agree.
Yep.
I think the majority is still there. I don't think the majority is the 90% that it looks like when you go off the vaccination numbers.
And that they keep quoting as supporters.
That's right. Yeah.
They say 90% of people support it.
Yeah.
It's not true.
It's not true at all. But if you would assume, is it 50% plus 1 vote? Probably at this point in time.
Yep.
That will fall off in the coming months, you would assume, as things get more and more nonsensical. But again, this is all politically motivated. So I think he's still going, well, we need to keep pushing on with this vaccination shit, because 50% plus 1 voters still believe in it, and I've got an election coming up in May.
Yeah.
And it looks like that May's going to be the date, like May 14 or something, I think has been thrown up as an election date. So, yeah, look, what is interesting is, like I said, the divergence of all these different countries doing different things, the divergence of Australia from the World Health Organization, and this goes into the next thing I want to talk about.
Well, hold on. To go to sort of link it to how we started.
Yeah.
When you and I knew that this was not going to work, when we knew that this vaccine was not going to reduce cases and case numbers were the thing, when that logic or illogic came up, that's when we should have had more people standing up.
Yeah.
That was the time to act. We still need to do it now, but once you hit that like 70%, and then we started kicking up a storm, that it's too late.
Yeah.
So we need to be able to sniff this bullshit out quicker.
Yeah. And the booster shot argument, so any one of you out there who has, maybe you've been vaccinated and you're thinking about getting the booster and your friends are all pressuring you or your family's pressuring you to get the booster, the reason why it doesn't make sense is, well, look, there's a few. Number one, the CEO of Pfizer said that it does nothing to
the guy that makes it.
Yeah, to protect you from Omicron. Which, again, say what you will about the commercial interests of Pfizer, because they're looking at creating an Omicron-specific vaccine booster to come out in March. So there's clearly a commercial interest in him selling that new product, because, hey, let's be honest, every single dose that the Australian government's already ordered has already been paid for. So,
yeah.
So Albert Bourla from Pfizer gets to get his Omicron sold on top of it. But even just think about this. Every single year, we have a new flu vaccine, because the flu is a respiratory virus which mutates every year, and the vaccine is based off the 3 dominant flu strains that are going around the world that particular year, in the hope that when the flu hits Australia, one of these 3 strains will be the one that is dominant, and therefore it'll give you a level of protection from that strain. The booster shots are the same formulation as the original vaccine created off the Alpha variant in 2020.
Yeah.
So would you go into your doctor before flu season in 2022 and say, hey, you got any of those 2020 flu shots? Can you give me one of those? Your doctor would be like, that's fucking retarded, because there's a new strain out this year, so you need the new flu shot.
Well, I think the marketing has been very interesting, because the studies that say it works, if you read the fine print, all it says is that it boosts your antibodies. And that's why that study out of Israel that says the 4th shot does nothing for Omicron.
Yeah.
Because they studied what it does to Omicron. Whereas the ones that say, we all know that the 3rd booster increases your antibodies, so that kind of means that it might help.
Yeah. And this is the...
Yeah, we don't know.
This is the non-scientific... Well, I mean, the whole thing's unscientific, but another unscientific part of the argument is they try to move the conversation towards having COVID antibodies. Now, in Australia, hey, have any of you guys had an antibody test to see if you've got antibodies after COVID? Doctors won't give them to you.
Yeah.
So the focus of the conversation around vaccines now is having COVID antibodies, and yet you can't get tested to see if you've already got them.
Yeah.
You just need to go and get your booster. They... Obviously, with the sheer amount of cases that have been experienced in the last month. So here's some quick numbers off the top of my head. At the end of 2021, Australia's case numbers were at roughly somewhere between 225,000 and 250,000 total for the pandemic at that point in time. We've just clocked over 2 million. Yep. It's the 21st of January. In 21 days, we have 10x'd our case count.
Yep.
So the vaccine doesn't stop spread, right?
Oh, no, but I blame it on the 2 people that used fake vax passports to get into one pub.
Yeah.
That's 2 million.
And Novak.
yeah, Novak Djokovic.
Right.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I want to come back to that. But yeah, go.
No,
okay. So yesterday it was obviously everyone was bashing Kelly Slater.
Yeah.
Because he's anti. And what I found hilarious is that on the news, they're showing pictures, and Kelly Slater is a fucking babe, right?
Oh, yeah.
Shirt off, sun behind, like they picked the best photos. They showed him doing like 360s off like just the most epic. It was his best highlight reel that they have.
Yeah.
And then cross over to the fat epidemiologist to go, he shouldn't be here, he's a threat to our health. And you're just like, what is this?
Yeah.
What are we doing?
And the thing is, any bloke who criticises Kelly Slater, you just need to know, your wife would fuck him in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
In a heartbeat.
Yeah.
That's why we should keep him out of the country. Forget the COVID stuff. Like, keep him out to keep my wife safe.
He's jabbing.
Yeah.
I just think I do find it hilarious that we're kicking out the people at the top of their peak physical form, fitness, and calling them threats.
Yeah.
Now, I did have a conversation with someone that did alarm me about the Djokovic thing, and I know that you haven't wanted to delve into it because it's...
No, I'm happy to now because we've got to the end point and now we can actually discuss the facts.
Okay, so I think the consensus out there, and put in the comments below, oh, by the way, can you please like and subscribe? We're really close to 69.
Yeah.
69 subscribers. So can you please like, subscribe?
We did pick up a few extra viewers too after, like that episode on
Your episode.
the children's vaccination. That actually clocked over 100 views a few days ago. It's the best, and a lot of audio downloads as well. It's the best response we've had for a little while. So now we picked up a couple of extra viewers out of that. The YouTube analytics from last week's episode are saying that about 50% of people watching aren't subscribed. So if you're sticking around for, we're 3 episodes in now with you, please hit the subscribe button, please like it, and
free.
please say happy birthday Nate in the comments below.
It's free. Just click the button, man. Come on.
Help the boys out.
Yeah. Now I've lost my train of thought.
Conversations about Djokovic situation, consensus is.
So I spoke to someone during the week, and I was like, okay, so what do we all think about the Djokovic thing? And they said, oh yeah, he shouldn't have lied on his visa application. I'm like, okay. And is that why they kicked him out? Yeah. Well, no, that's incorrect.
No.
So do you want to line up what the facts were? I'll talk about what the perception is.
Yep.
And where the big blinding, like the gaping, the elephant in the room.
Yeah. Well, okay. So the original weekend, the first court case that happened over the weekend was the dispute was in regards to the paperwork that Djokovic used to enter the country. And what came out of that court case was that everything that Djokovic had done was correct based on the instructions that were given to him by not only Tennis Australia, but also by the Victorian government to actually get into the country. So that's why the first court case went in the favour of Novak.
Yep.
Tick. The
The
second court case had nothing to do with any of the paperwork. Absolute zero. The immigration minister, Alex Hawke, has the powers to make a captain's call on literally kicking any non-citizen out of the country if they choose to, for whatever reason that is. So he chose to exercise those powers to kick Novak out of the country. Novak's team took him to court to basically fight and try to be able to stay
to see whether that was legal.
That's right.
Yeah.
And essentially, the judges came to the conclusion that the minister does in fact have those powers and is therefore able to exercise those powers. It had nothing to do with any wrongdoing by Novak at all. So key point on this too, though, that everyone needs to understand. By exercising those powers, Novak is banned from the country for 3 years.
Yeah.
So it's not like the first court case, it literally just would have been a deportation and then he could have applied for an exemption to come back again under the right grounds, if that was the way that it went down. After exercising those powers, he's not allowed back in the country for 3 years.
So those are the facts. The perception on the street is that he lied, he fought the court case and he lost, right? When you tell people the facts, this guy said, I don't like the idea of Novak having anti-vax sentiment being in the country, so I get it. So I said, so are you okay with a minister overruling a judge in a courtroom for thought crimes?
Yeah.
Because that's what this is.
That's where we're at.
They do not like the way he thinks.
Yeah.
Kick him out.
Yes.
That's authoritarian government stuff. That's China stuff.
100%.
That's North Korea stuff. Like that's the big story for me.
Yeah. Which is ignored because the media by design is lying and still trying to put the idea out there that it was a paperwork issue or it was because he lied on his application because he had actually gone to Spain or something beforehand, which that was brought up in that first weekend's court case.
Yeah.
And it was seen as an administrative oversight from Djokovic's manager who filled out that form. Novak himself didn't lie, was cleared of all that stuff. But the media is deliberately muddying the waters because of the government's lapdogs and making the general consensus that Novak lied, that's why he's not allowed in the country. When all it's about is exactly what you said. Novak thinks in a way that the government is not happy with. He has a high profile, and the government doesn't want people looking at Novak going, I agree with him, so we need to get rid of him. Otherwise, we're going to have this massive wave of anti-vax backlash.
Yeah.
And even in that first weekend's court case, that was covered because the government tried to bring that forward as an argument to eject him. And the judge was like, can you please cite examples of when Novak's been put up as a figurehead at anti-vaccination rallies or whatever? The only time that he's ever been involved in any sort of anti-vax rally is when the anti-vaxxers went in to support him after they tried to deport him the first time.
Yeah.
That's the only time. He has always been very clear on the fact that vaccination is a personal choice. He wants to have the choice of whether he vaccinates or not, and he doesn't agree with mandates. He's never actually come out and confirmed whether or not he's had it.
Which I love.
Never.
You know he's suing the government now for...
Yeah, and this was
assuming that he was going to win it.
Well, he probably was.
Yeah. I don't know any other player that's playing in the Australian Open.
Look, Rafael Nadal's playing.
Okay, I thought he was injured.
He's just come back from injury and he's playing pretty well.
Yeah.
There's a second story to this too, and this is a potentially legacy-destroying decision that the Australian government has made. Now, I'm not a huge tennis fan, so this is me just trying to put it out there based off the small amount of information I know. But what I know is this. In the modern era, the three greatest tennis players of all time are Novak, Rafael Nadal, and Roger Federer. And I believe they are all currently tied on the total number of Grand Slams they have. It's either 20 or 21.
Right.
So any non-tennis fan, a Grand Slam is one of 4 marquee tournaments that they hold every single year, and they're the most prestigious tournaments that you can win. So these guys are all tied on the same amount of Grand Slams. Novak's best Grand Slam is the Australian Open on the hard courts. He wins that one more often than any other Grand Slam.
It's like 20 or something. No, it was so some horrific figure.
So out of his 20, I think something like 8 or 9 of them would be from the Australian Open. So it's his happiest hunting ground. Now, he's 34 years old as well. Most professional athletes don't stay at the same level. He's at an advanced age as far as being a professional athlete goes. So the Australian government has robbed him of the chance to put his name up there as the greatest of all time. Because he doesn't get the opportunity to win this tournament.
Yeah.
So let's say the next big name player is Rafa.
Yep.
So if Rafa goes on to win this tournament, he becomes number 1 of all time with a massive asterisk next to it because, like, hey, Novak wasn't playing and Federer's injured. So you won that and you got yourself up to that level without actually playing the best guys. And there's a lot of people who are big Rafa fans too, so they're quite happy with that, and that's perfectly fine. It's what sport's all about. The next major tournament is the French Open, Roland Garros, which is also now talking about not allowing Novak to play because the French have really strict vaccine-related policies as well.
Which is funny because they've got a very low vax rate, but anyway.
Yeah.
I'll look it up.
Which is also kind of what happens when you've got authoritarianism. So rather than explaining to people and educating them, allowing them to make the decision to take it, if you try to force things on people, they generally don't want to do it. So the French Open...
There's 79.
Okay. It's still...
Sorry, 74.
Is that double dose?
Double dose, 74.9.
So there are 74% anti-vaxxers because they haven't had the boosters yet.
40% have boosters.
Right. So the thing is that Roland Garros, which is the French tournament, that's Nadal's best tournament. He is a clay court specialist, or was when he was early on in his career, and he cleans that tournament up every single time. So then you're basically giving him the opportunity to go tour.
Yeah.
So when it comes down to tennis history, an administrative and bureaucratic bullshit decision might rob Novak the chance to go down as the greatest of all time.
Well, I think a more pressing issue, so that we shouldn't really care about that, right? Because that he should care about it. That would it's a big kick in the guts to him. But I'm more concerned that what's the point of having the Australian Open? Like, I want to know what ticket sales are like. I want to know how many people wanted their money back after they bought tickets and he couldn't play because he was the marquee player.
Yep.
And then I was going to ask, what's the vaccine mandate? Are they triple dosing in the UK?
I don't think...
Is it mandated?
Outside of healthcare, I don't think it's mandated anywhere.
Okay, so that's the next big one, Formula One.
Right.
So Formula One is due in April this year. We lost our spot. We usually have it. Yeah, we usually have that. They usually have that one in March. It's usually the first race of the season. But because we've given up on it 2 years in a row, it's been taken by another country. Now, my question is, apparently the government has said there is no way around the laws that come in. So no one can come in on an exemption. You've got to be fully vaccinated. But my question for Jason, who's now not here, who I really need to answer this question, is if most of the teams are UK and like Italian based, it's the majority of the teams, I don't think any of them are going to be triple vaxxed. And therefore, by then, if Dan Andrews is already pushing it now, surely by April, there's going to be a 3-dose mandate. And therefore, Formula One won't be allowed here. Or none of the teams are going to be here. Because it's not just the drivers. Unlike tennis, your tennis team is very small. A tennis team is a player, a coach, manager or something like that. But a Formula One team, there's probably 70, 80 people per team, per driver that come across. Plus mega amounts of media, like global media. So there's probably 10,000 people that are coming just as part of that. So my question is, if most teams are UK,
mm-hmm.
and if they're not mandated for triple dosed, yet Dan Andrews is talking about mandating triple dose,
mm-hmm.
are they going to be allowed here in April? Now,
No.
I read an article saying that they've already been given assurance that it is going to be going ahead as long as everyone complies by the rules. But the rule's going to be triple dose.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no point for them to be triple dosed if the UK is not mandating it.
This should be a big story, because not only has Melbourne gone from being one of the probably top 5 most livable cities in the world to down there in the bottom.
Yeah.
But Melbourne has long been held up as the sporting capital of Australia.
Mm.
And in Australian culture, if you don't like sports, you don't care, and I get that. But Australian culture is very sport heavy.
Yeah.
We love sports.
All societies are very sport heavy. It's the Julius Caesar thing. Give them games, and that's why he built all the Colosseums. That's what we were saying before.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay. So Melbourne was the sporting capital of Australia, and obviously the Australian Open is one of these Grand Slam events. With the Australian Open, now for a start, running it last year, I do credit with the Delta wave starting in Australia.
Mm.
Because if you actually go back and look at the numbers, all of the cases started to drop off a cliff after October 2020, and then we held the Australian Open, and then the next wave came through. Because obviously you've got a massive event where you brought in a whole bunch of internationals.
Mm.
So it was pretty dumb to actually run it in the first place, but we did it, and you need to understand this is based off economic grounds. It has nothing. Running the Australian Open does nothing for anyone's health.
Yeah.
So we've had all of these restrictions put in place on us as citizens for 2 years based on public health measures. There is no public health measure that is improved by running an international sporting event.
Yeah.
Okay, so you need to remember that. But it was farcical last year. This year, clearly farcical. Like, the actual tournament itself has been completely overshadowed by a guy who's not allowed to play in it.
Yeah.
Who's the number 1 player in the world. You then need to factor in the fact that he's banned for 3 years, which means for the next 3 Australian Opens, he's not allowed to come and play.
Yeah.
If you're the World Tennis Tour, how likely are you to hold an event in a country that not only has banned the number 1 player in the world, but has kicked out multiple other athletes? Because, don't forget as well, I think there's been now 3 or 4 other athletes who are actually in on the exact same exemption that Novak was, who
were on the courts playing.
Who played in the warm-up tournament.
Yeah.
Who then, after the public backlash happened about the Novak thing, was then rounded up and booted from the country.
Yeah.
Now, the argument with the Novak thing was that he was stopped by Border Force and that his exemption was not accepted by Border Force. Well, Border Force would have stopped all of these other players too, who were there on the exact same exemption, but they didn't. which is why you know it had nothing to do with health, nothing to do with paperwork, everything to do with his known anti-vaccination stance.
Well, unknown anti-vax stance.
Well, his anti-mandate stance, I'll say, which was well known. So you've got that. Formula One, we didn't get the race last year, did we?
2 years in a row.
2 years in a row.
So the first race, they were here, and that's when it kicked off.
Yeah.
And I was just saying that it's been pushed back. We've missed our spot, our March spot, so now it's going to be April. And yeah, the article I read said that they're assured that it will be on.
Yeah.
As long as everyone abides by the rules. Yeah. But those rules are about to change. And I don't think they're going to buy it. And I said that's probably 10,000 people that come as part of the Formula One show, you know.
So we've had no Formula One for 2 years. And I think it's highly unlikely we'll get the race this year. Because if it is in April and we're still peaking off Omicron and we're about to bring in triple dose mandates, I think it's highly unlikely that, politically speaking, they'll allow that event to go forth. Because one of the most concerning aspects of the Novak thing for me is all these people who are rightfully angry about the situation, but are completely pointing their anger in the wrong direction. It is tall poppy syndrome to the max. Everyone was angry, going, "Oh, it's different rules for Novak because he's rich." That's not the problem.
Yeah.
The problem is you're upset. You're this upset because you've been locked in a cage for 2 years. You shouldn't be locked in the cage, and neither should Novak.
Exactly.
That's where the anger needs to go. At the government bureaucrats who have made these decisions, which is clearly not based on science, because they change them every 2 fucking days. The IVF thing is the perfect example of why it's not based on science, because they reversed a decision within 48 hours based on public backlash. That is political. That's got nothing to do with health. Let's be very clear about that. So,
but I want to reiterate that. Direct your anger at the people making the policy.
That's right.
You're not vaccinating yourself for the disease. You're vaccinating yourself against a political...
Yeah. It's exactly the same as mask wearing. You're not wearing a mask to protect yourself from the disease. You're protecting yourself from the police and the government.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. And understand that and direct your energy at the...
Yeah.
Don't... The people that are... Like, you need to ask yourself deeply inside yourself. If you feel bad that you got tricked, okay, you can still now fight for it. Don't die on that hill. That's a bad hill to die on.
Absolutely.
Understand that you have been politically fucked, okay, and fight that. Yeah. That's what we can do. We can vote these people out.
Yeah.
We can find parties that are going to fight for us, right?
Yeah.
Don't die on that hill. Because history will not be kind to you.
It would be exactly the same as if, let's say that you grew up around our age, you know, we're mid-30s, and imagine you grew up as a deeply religious person who was taught that gay people are the devil. And imagine being in 2022 and standing up on your soapbox, which is Facebook, and going, gay people are the devil, and they're heathens, and they should be struck down, and blah, blah. You would not be very popular these days.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. If you are pro-vax, pro-segregation of unvaccinated people, you are literally advocating for the separation of a certain group of people who are a minority now from society because of what? Because you've been manipulated by a structure.
Yeah.
Just as the church manipulated people to be against homosexuals, the government is now manipulating people to be against the unvaccinated. You're being played, and you can choose to opt out of the game at any time.
Yeah.
And you'll be welcomed back with open arms. Because at the end of the day, we are Australian. It's a global environment now. All of us need to actually band together, because this IVF thing shows that when people power is united, we can cause real change. Yep. So we can do that now. You've seen it happen already. You need to do more of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
You need to get involved and do more of it. Sorry, just to finish up on the Melbourne thing. So, if you were the World Tennis Tour, would you hold a Grand Slam event in a country that's kicked out the number one player, kicked out multiple other players, after their local governing body of tennis had literally sent out emails to all the players going, this is the process to get in with an exemption, which was ticked off by the government as well at the time? Would you take that chance for a third year in a row? Probably not. The New Zealand government, now, this is not necessarily an Australian issue. It's Anzac issue because New Zealand's just as fucked as we are when it comes to their government. So they just cancelled the New Zealand cricket team's tour of Australia. That's another sporting event we just lost because of all of this bullshit that's going on at the moment. And at the end of the day, we're a big sporting culture. We want sport to thrive in this country. But if anything drops off the planet in the sporting landscape for 2, 3, 4 years at a time, you lose a whole generation of kids that then want to go in and do that sport. The Australian Rugby Union is the perfect example of it. Australian Rugby Union could not sustain their domestic competition. Therefore, children lost interest because there was no Australian competition shown on TV, nothing to aspire to, and now the Wallabies suck.
Yeah.
It's just what happens.
It's funny you say that because I watched a video of an interview with the chief doctor in Israel, and one of the biggest regrets that he has over their whole rollout was what they did with schools.
Yep.
He's like, we should never have shut down a school ever. Kids should have been at school, and there's ramifications that we won't see for years and years
100%.
and years.
Yep.
And he goes, that is one thing that I'm just like, that I feel I mismanaged.
There is data out there showing that kids who are not only born but raised during the pandemic have had serious damage done to their IQ levels. They're showing on average lower IQs than kids who are born without it.
Yeah.
And that's been something I've been acutely aware of because I'm about to have my second child of the pandemic. And kids need to see faces. Kids don't understand language straight away. They need to see faces. So they need to see because they can figure out your body language, but also when you speak to a child, they're watching your lips, the way it moves. They're watching your tongue. They're watching everything. They're figuring out those things from you. So if you cover your face in a mask for the first 2 years of their lives, that early cognitive development where kids are just a sponge and they soak in every piece of information from the world, you've lost that.
Yeah.
You never get that time back or that development back. And you're right. We're not going to see the results of this for a long, long time.
Dude, I see people... Brisbane's, I think, full on. The amount of parents that I see walking in the middle of the day, in the sun, completely by themselves or just with their kid, wearing masks, that is wild.
The concerning thing for me is when I see...
There's no law to do that here.
No. And when I see a family walking and you'll have mum and dad might not even be wearing a mask, but the kids who are like 8 or 9 years old, they're wearing masks. Voluntary mask wearing for children because they're fucking terrified. It's disgusting.
Yeah.
I think it's...
You don't know what you're doing to your kids.
Yeah, you have no idea. Now, one last point on the Novak thing that I just want to remind everyone of. So the Novak thing was a complete and utter shit show. Who lost their job over that debacle?
Yeah.
No one.
Yeah.
Not the CEO of Tennis Australia, who in his organisation sent out these letters saying this is how you get exempted. Not the government ministers let him in the first place, or any of the other athletes that were let in. Not the border force agents who let all of the other athletes go in and play when they apparently were breaking the rules. No one lost their jobs. No one. So, again, keep that in mind when you've lost your job just because you didn't go and get vaccinated, or you're about to lose your job because you're refusing to go and get boosted. No one who completely fucked our international identity up again has lost their jobs. And also, consider the amount of taxpayer money that funded the lawyers which fought 2 straight court cases over weekends. Anyone who's had a lawyer knows how expensive they are at the best of times.
Yes, I know.
The court cases started after 6 p.m. on a Friday night. I'm sure you're paying extra for those, which is coming from your taxpayer money. And now you add in the fact that Novak's looking at suing the Australian government for $6 million, which will also be fought out in court. So you're going to have...
Which he'll win.
I would say that he'll win.
Yeah.
Which you will have the government not only having to pay the $6 million, but they're also going to have to pay for their legal fees, and they're going to have to pay for Novak's legal fees too when they lose.
Yeah, because they had to pay for Novak's first
That's right.
legal fees. Yeah.
Yeah. Now,
and I'll give you a tip: Novak ain't using no cheap lawyer.
No. Well, he had 3 as well too.
Yeah.
So
I've had 2. That was very expensive.
Yeah. I had another point here, which I thought was something really, really interesting. This will switch gears a little bit, but it's still in the same vein. I was sitting on the couch last night I love watching Channel 9 News because I get all my best propaganda from Channel 9.
I get mine from Channel 7.
Yeah, so Channel 9 is outside of the Murdoch empire because they're owned by Fairfax, but they're all still Channel 9's major shareholder is Vanguard. So they're all still part of the same ecosystem.
Yeah, and they're still getting the same tax breaks.
Correct.
Funny.
But I saw a news story that it hit me as very, very interesting, which was around, they interviewed an Australian guy who was suffering from long COVID.
Oh yeah, the one guy.
Yeah. And do you guys remember long COVID? Like, obviously, a few people still talk about long COVID, and really long COVID was just used as a justification to stop people from being scared about long vaccine adverse effects.
Yeah, I've got long COVID. Apparently my squat isn't that deep anymore.
There you go. Very, very real issues with long COVID. But this whole news story was about how new scientists are now researching the benefits of medical cannabis or marijuana to treat long COVID symptoms. And they interviewed this Australian guy who had been suffering the debilitating effects of long COVID and how he was involved in this trial and everything was like, he feels so much better and blah, 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 blah. And it really got me thinking because, number one, the cannabis market in Australia, we made the prediction last year, if you legalise cannabis, you've solved our taxation issues pretty much overnight. So we thought that it might go in that direction. And you can get medicinal marijuana in Australia, but it's only for a very select amount of...
And not in every state.
Not in every state as well. It's not uniform. And so it got me thinking, why would Channel 9, who is propaganda central, be running a story on the medicinal benefits of marijuana and linking it to today's buzzword, which is COVID? Could it have anything to do with the fact that Pfizer, in December, paid $6.7 billion to acquire a company called Arena Pharmaceuticals, who just so happens to be a biotech company which is creating cannabis-based therapeutics?
Oh my God.
It'd have to just be a coincidence, right? You're advertising a product which is banned in most states in Australia on the mainstream news at 5:30 night, primetime news viewing. You're doing an advertisement for a banned product.
Or from your overlords.
From your overlords at Pfizer, who just so happen to have purchased a biotech company that specialises in that product.
It's funny because that's everywhere. Those articles are everywhere. It's like they've punched it out.
It's worldwide.
Pfizer's marketing team is amazing. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is.
But it's amazing the amount of marketing that you can pay for when you've created a product and had a captive market that you've making tens and tens of billions of dollars in 1 year.
Yeah.
Now, keep an eye on that one, kids.
Yeah.
Speaking of other major acquisitions, which is relevant to something we have spoken on the podcast about before, did you see that Microsoft is acquiring Activison Blizzard?
Yeah.
For a $69 billion cash settlement. Bill Gates is pulling his wallet out and pulling out $68.7 billion.
I don't know how much of Microsoft he has now. I don't.
Okay.
Yeah, I think he's sold most. It's probably worth checking. I don't think he's involved as Microsoft. I'm pretty sure he's sold most of his stake in it. But I do want to say that just Activision owns, or Blizzard owns, Call of Duty. Call of Duty Warzone, the free-to-play, is worth 1.2 billion in revenue every year, and it's free. Get out of town. So it is a stonker.
Here's a staggering... Well, it's not even a statistic, but in the press conferences generally tell you, obviously, where the money's at. And they were talking about how people are so... they love Blizzard Activision games. And it had, like, Call of Duty, World of Warcraft, Candy Crush. Candy Crush was the third game listed, and it was third of 3 listed, which means... Candy Crush is where they make...
Candy Crush makes $1 billion a year in revenue. $1 billion. Candy Crush.
Mental.
Yeah.
Let's have a look here. So, who owns Microsoft? Major individual shareholders comprise co-founder Bill Gates, so he stepped down from the company's board in 2020. As of 2019, Gates still owned a stake of $103 million in stocks, which accounted for 1.34% of the company.
Much.
So it's fuck all.
Yeah. Yeah, because he's on Kovacs, bro. Kovacs is making I'm making these
He's Kermit the Frog, eh?
vaccinations and they don't do anything and I make 20 times my investment, and Jeffrey Epstein is my friend.
Yeah, but he's dead now. So. Yeah. So look, that was very interesting. So
that was a big deal.
I mean, look.
Now Microsoft will fuck it because, like, I'm a gaming nerd, right?
Yeah.
You're still playing games from 2001. I'm playing the latest ones
because that was the golden age.
Yeah, that's a Blizzard product too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that was when they were cool. Blizzard has gone through, Activision has gone through a lot of bad stuff, a lot of sexual harassment claims.
It was Blizzard, actually. It was both.
Yeah, a lot of mismanagement, a lot of really bad court cases, bad workplace culture. Mm-hmm. But Microsoft, I believe, is just trying to they're trying to vertically integrate Xbox. Mm-hmm. So, if in 5 years' time or in 2 years' time, the next version of Call of Duty is an Xbox exclusive, then
you'll know why.
Yeah.
And that was my first thought. They're now bringing in some of the most popular gaming products in the world, which will exclusively be available on Microsoft-based products. Yeah. Like PC and Xbox.
But have you ever tried to reset your Microsoft password?
Yeah.
It is near on impossible.
Yeah.
I don't know what system they are using, but it doesn't work. Mm. It doesn't work.
Yeah. Yeah, but I just saw that in the news. I thought that was really, really interesting because obviously we detailed all the Blizzard Activision issues. And I'm pretty sure the guy who is running it at the moment, he'll be doing it as a caretaker thing, and I think they're going to punt him.
Oh, you have to.
Shortly
afterwards.
The
guy's a dud.
Yeah.
The guy's a dud.
Yeah, so...
Do you know what's interesting? So that channel, and can we give a shout out to... Can you pull up that YouTube channel that has war stories of video games?
Yeah.
And I was so... What was interesting is that Diablo one that I sent you, I got hints of some of that workplace culture stuff from that video that obviously it's grown, that seed was planted and it's got...
Well, he didn't have any hints in there about the sexual harassment stuff, but he had hints in there about the...
looseness. I think it's the looseness of it.
I think he also made a lot of mentions about how at the time it was refreshing because at Blizzard they were still gamers at heart, and every other developer at the time had brought in businessmen to run it.
Ars Technica, ARS Technica. Shout out to that channel. Mm-hmm. I'm loving the content.
Yep.
I'll give them another like. I've subscribed to them, just like you should subscribe to us. But yeah, if you're a gaming nerd and want some nostalgia hits and have some great interviews with the people that the key figures that made it, get on it.
Yeah, because it is super interesting to go back at those times because you're listening to stories about, obviously, this was before gaming was the complete juggernaut that it is now, where it is run by hedge funds, essentially, who all they're interested in is the bottom dollar and the return of the investment.
Hence the reason why the games are shit.
Yeah. So it was back when gaming was an art form created by gamers for gamers, and it was gamers creating games that they wanted to play.
Yeah.
But also having to deal with things like software limitations at the time, which software limitations now are just basically based on how good can I make the graphics but still have it run at a decent frame rate. Yeah. That's all they're dealing with. Back then it was like, how am I going to build a game mechanic that has never existed before?
Well, Myst, the one that I watched about Myst, which I used to play at primary school, they talked about where they placed the music compared to the levels on the CD-ROM, where it physically was on the CD. Yeah, because they were having difficulties with being able to fit the whole game on one CD-ROM. Yeah, they couldn't render, they drew all the graphics in a CAD, but they couldn't push render and still operate computers. So he had bought 5 computers, and he might do one level and then place it on one computer, build another level, place another computer, and when they left home for the day, push render to let them render for 12 hours. Yeah. Crazy stuff. I love it. It's great. Yeah, so it's actually really, really interesting content. Ars Technica. Cool. All right, let's leave it there. Yeah. Thanks very much for joining us, guys, and we'll see you next RDO.